it was so intense. And for those that watch the show that don't know about arm wrestling, you have to hold on to a peg with your opposite hand. And Dave was holding on that tight that he was bleeding on that hand as well. There was blood all over that peg. Like, not only was he bleeding on the hand that he was arm wrestling with, but he was bleeding on the other hand as well. And there's a really great photo out there of the bloody peg.
That main event, Dave Chaffee and Laletin. Man, what were you thinking standing next to the table when that was taking place? Were you thinking that Dave had it when he started to switch to that press?
Well, it was quite funny because whilst I'm watching it, I was like, this match is amazing. But at the time, I was like, is it amazing because I'm here? Am I putting some mayonnaise onto it? But then afterwards, everyone's like, oh my God, one of the greatest matches of the year.
Yeah.
Second of all, for 2 or 3 rounds, I'm in Dave Chaffee's corner. So I'm there with the big guy. So he sits down after a strong round 1, and he came over to my side where I was just standing off camera, and there was no one there, and he puts his arm up, and his wife's 5 foot and 30 kilos. Lovely lady, Amber, she is. But she was struggling to hold Dave's arm because, like, you know, shoulder pressing your body weight. And I could see Dave tensing his arm, and it's like, well, you're not relaxing. So I grab some ice, and I'm over there, and I'm rubbing, and then, yeah, the first thing I say to Dave is mate, I'm not going to take out an arm wrestle. You know what to do. So then, yeah, being in his corner, and then after round 3, I went off at him. I scathed him. I gave him an absolute good old-fashioned scolding. That's what I did. Yeah, so he comes up, he gets 2-1, and then, yeah, round 2-0, and then round 3, 2-1. And I could see his mind going, and I could see that he was thinking about, here we go again, 2-0 up. It's inevitable. And then I was like, effing get that out of your head. Yeah, this is bullshit. You know, that endurance stuff. I said, you're the man. I said, you're Dave Chaffee. I said, get that shit out of your head now. Like, that is ridiculous. I said, we've got 6, I said, we've got 4 more rounds. I said, you've got 2 more to do it. 2 more fucking wins. And then he gets up, and I slap him on the back, and off he goes. And yeah, he was very, I mean, he goes on to lose the next 2 rounds after that, but he was very grateful that I was supporting him and things like that. But then the famous Lachlan Adair Engen Terzi thing happened when I was standing next to Lockie, and he's like, oh, I'm just messaging Engen. He's telling me what Dave should do to win. Like, go and tell Dave.
Yeah.
Go and tell Dave what to do. Engen's pretty smart. You know, if you're going to take advice from someone. And then Lachlan became his corner man. And Lachlan there was awesome as a corner man because he's so knowledgeable in physical therapy. So whilst I'm icing Dave's arm and whatnot, like, Lockie's in there and he's turning Dave's wrist and hand, and he's releasing nerve endings and things like that. So would have just made Dave feel $1 million.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when that's it. That was always the question, and it has been with Dave. You could see, that he always gets off to a really good start because he's so powerful, he's so strong, but it seems to come at that price of, after the first couple of rounds, that power starts to dissipate, it starts to drop off a little bit, and he starts to get tired, and the opponent sends it around at that point. You saw that with Gennady, and I was like, oh no, when it started to happen in this match as well. I was like, as you said, he was probably thinking exactly the same thing, like all those sort of demons coming back to haunt you. It's like, oh, it's happening again. But he was very clever to change tactics and move from what he was doing and go into a press, which worked out for him.
But let me, people tend to forget there, young Matthew, what people tend to forget, and it was grinding my gears, and it was something I said to Dave during the match. So at East versus West, it happened against Gennady. And at East versus West, it happened against Morozov. There was one match in between that everyone forgot about. Do you remember the match you had in between?
Was it Chance Shaw?
No. It was Alex Kadecha at King of the Table. So
right.
he goes over and he does the 2-0 up and loses. And then he goes and flogs a giant top roller 5-1. Gives him the last one. Goes back to East versus West and happen again. So I'm telling Dave, this is your home ground advantage. There are 6 rounds. There are 6 rounds this time. Not 5, 6. And he ended up having 7 because he got got it on the buzzer there. But yeah, people just suddenly, and that's why I predicted Dave Chaffee to win. I thought he's on his own, home court advantage. He just beat a giant top roller that was in fine form. Just crushed Hermes. No one could touch Kadecha, and Dave did it. So it was a lot of people forgot that, and they're like, "Oh, Dave's losing all these matches." Like, no, he's just So it was pretty cool.
No, exactly. Well, it is strange because you look at, say, the top 10, and it's almost like anybody could beat anybody on each given night. There's no sort of real clear front runner to say this is the exact order of these guys, and it's pretty clear. It's like, well, it's all over the place. This guy's beating this guy, who's beating this guy, who's beating this guy, and it all seems to flow, which is great for spectators because you never really have a clear overdog and the underdog. It's like, oh, this is a squash match. Don't even worry. Like, he's obviously going to win. It's like, well, we don't know who's going to win this one. You could.
Yeah, number one's clear as day. But in my top 10, I have about 14 people. Like that's that's how close. That's how close it is. It makes no sense. But from 2 to 10, there's 14 people, 14, 15 people. You could definitely argue, and in any position, like you can name your number 2. And I did a top 10 list recently, but I could counter argue my own list. But I thought this was the most logic with the less countering that I could come up with, because I'd come up with a list and I'd have 10 counters and I'd do another one. Like, oh, I'm down to 8. Okay, I've only got 5 here. That's my list. Let's go.
Yeah. And then you get guys like, Jerry Caderet, who hadn't pulled for a couple of years, jumping straight back in, beating some of the top guys. And then it's like, oh, he's upset the list again. It's like, So, it is good, though, because, that's what you want when you're selling a match and when you're hyping an event. It's like, we don't know who's going to win. Like, anybody could win here, apart from Levan, obviously, he's crushing everyone 6-0. But, it's nice to see that. There's no real... like, oh, this guy's obviously going to win. It's like, well, hey, this is a 50-50. It could go either way. And that's how it felt with Chaffee and Laletin. It was like, I don't know how it's going to go. And it went down to the absolute wire. And Laletin gave it everything, ended up, on the floor, had to be sort of checked out by the ambulance crew and everything. It was like, that's the intensity that this match got to.
Yeah, he was taken out by ambulance. So I had Dave Chaffee's blood on my jacket. The photo of it was so intense. And for those that watch the show that don't know about arm wrestling, you have to hold on to a peg with your opposite hand. And Dave was holding on that tight that he was bleeding on that hand as well. There was blood all over that peg. Like, not only was he bleeding on the hand that he was arm wrestling with, but he was bleeding on the other hand as well. And there's a really great photo out there of the bloody peg.
Wow. It's amazing. I didn't know that. That's incredible. Yeah. So strong, Dave Chaffee. So strong. I've talked about this a couple of times, but I got that we've got a plate loaded preacher curl at the gym, and I got 80 kilos on it with 2 arms for 1 rep. Like, right, 2
amazing.
Arms. Just got it. Very happy. Sent the video to Ryan Bowen, who sends me back Dave Chaffee doing it with 1 arm for reps, casually talking to the camera at the same time. I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Raw horsepower, he's probably the second strongest arm wrestler on the planet in pure horsepower.
Absolutely. Yeah. Was it you that was talking to Dave and you were asking why he didn't go into the hook with Levan? And he said, when you get up there, it's just a different world. Your sort of strategy goes out the window. And
I think that might have been on the Mark Boyd Strongcast podcast. But where Dave and I more spoke about when I spoke to him just off camera, like I can't believe I'm saying it, like just hanging out with Dave Chaffee. It's still sitting pretty surreal that I'm able to say that. Just some of these guys I can just say, well, can now call my friend. Is just blows my mind.